We put gasoline on that thing and we burned it. We watched it go up in flames. The next day, that board was back in its box in that armoire with no damage to it.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate all of you out there, and thank you so much for your wonderful support. Remember, if you've got an experience and you'd like to be a guest on the show, please reach out to me. You can reach me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. And I just got to tell you, today we got a really cool guest. This individual has had a lifetime of really intense paranormal experiences, and she's here with us today to talk about what she's seen and been through. And welcome to the show, CJ. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of the show.
Hi, Brent. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and I really appreciate you making the time to do this. You've had, you sent me an email, and it was just chock full of these experiences, and I was like, wow, you've seen some stuff, and I guess the best place to start is, where did it start for you?
Well, it started in a house in Davison. I was around 6 years old, as far as I can remember. This house was always kind of dark. From what I remember, the family we were always fighting. I did come from an abusive background. My father was an alcoholic. He was very physically abusive. But anyway, so my mom had actually told us a story when we got older. She told us a story about this house where she was sleeping one night and she woke up and her gaze fell up on the corner of the room where the wall meets, and there was like this moon face, like a moon but with a face on it, staring at her.
Wow.
And we were raised as Christians, so we had the demons, what you say. Mm-hmm. And anyway, she couldn't move, like she was completely paralyzed, and she couldn't breathe, she couldn't scream. She was trying to call for my dad and reach for him, but she couldn't do anything. Mm-hmm. And so she kept in her mind just saying, Jesus Christ rebuke thee, Jesus Christ rebuke thee. And this moon kind of started coming toward her, and then it just kind of disappeared. And when it did that, she was able to move again. Wow. So she woke my dad up, but that was it. That's all she ever told us about that. So
that's awfully scary. I can't imagine what that would have been like.
Oh, I'm sure she was scared to death. My mom is, she was probably scared to death. Mm. So. And then the other ones was I come from a family of seven siblings. Well, 6 siblings. I've got 2 older brothers, an older sister, 2 younger sisters, and a younger brother. Mm. And so anyways, my oldest sister would have reoccurring dreams in that house of my brother, who's just a year younger than her, murdering us all with like a shotgun and axes. And she was constantly having these nightmares, and, she would tell my parents, and, they just shut her down. They shut us all down when we would talk about stuff. But even though they had their experiences, they didn't want to talk about it.
Right. So. I think parents do that. I always think, when kids have experiences, I think it's important to listen, because they're going to the safe place, and that is the parents. And when parents go, oh, no, you didn't experience that, you didn't see that, you're just having a dream, go back to bed. I think that's parents just trying to put those fears to rest. But I think it also is pretty damaging to the child, because where else are you going to go,
Right, and then it makes you feel like you're crazy, like you're nuts,
Absolutely.
And then you're ashamed to say anything or talk about it, Right. That's where I've gone.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, no doubt. Wow. So how many years did you live in this house?
From when I can remember, I think I only was there for maybe 2 or 3 years before we moved out of that home. So like I said, I was pretty young, and I don't really remember just, the instances that I had while I was living there. The house, I remember like like it was yesterday. Like I could tell you exactly how the layout of the house to this day, and I've never been back there except for later on in the story I'll talk about that. But
okay.
So my younger brother, this is another incident. He was getting ready to get put in for a bath, and he used to stick like us three younger ones in the bath all at the same time.
Sure.
And so we were all getting ready to go in there, and they stuck him in there, and all of a sudden, we see some blood in the water, and he had sat on this little chunk of like if a glass breaks and it's the bottom of the glass and there's little shards on it.
Yeah.
There's a piece of like a drinking glass in the bottom of the tub.
Oh.
But there is no other pieces.
Just one little piece.
One piece. Yeah.
Oh.
And there's no glass in the bathroom, so we don't know how it even got in there, or how it's just weird because that was the only piece in there, and it wasn't in there when they started running the tub.
Wow. And I know some people may think, well, it's just glass, but if there was no other glass in there and there was no broken dishes that you were aware of or your family's aware of, then how do you account for that? And that is really peculiar. I actually had I'm sorry, go ahead. I was going to say I actually had an experience very similar to that, where a razor blade was one of those utility razor blades was stuck in my stairs, and my cousin stepped down, and we'd been up and down the stairs all day, and he stepped down and the thing went deep into his heel. And where did that come from? Nobody was using a razor knife. No, I think I had one somewhere, but it was, not something I was even using in that time period. So how did that get there? And I still don't know to this day.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really intense. So, he was okay other than, having a cut?
Yeah, it was just like the shard that got him was like, just a tiny piece. But there's it's not like we couldn't have missed it. I just don't see it happening,
Sure.
It's just...
Okay.
But anyway, so the one that affected me, this is the one that I remember that I actually experienced was we were put to bed. And I was laying in bed, and I could just hear, I thought everybody else was gone to bed. And I heard all these people down in our kitchen. And when you walk down the stairway, you go directly to the front door at the end of the stairway. But right to the left of the door was a huge picture window. And so I started walking down the stairs, and I could hear all these people talking. I could see the kitchen light, illuminating the living room, because the picture window was the living room. Then you walked through the living room to the back of the house, and it was the kitchen. And I got to the bottom of the stairs, and I looked up, and there was a pair of eyes, red eyes. Ooh. In the window looking in at me. And then I looked around the corner, and everything was completely dark. The voices, the laughing, everything stopped. And the whole house was dark. And I was stuck down there by myself, and I started screaming and crying, and my oldest sister came down and grabbed me and didn't know what happened, and
wow.
I was so that was my experience in that house.
And the light was off too when you actually got down there, like you had seen.
Oh yeah. As soon as I looked up, and everything was happening, and as soon as I looked, because your eyes kind of fell directly at the picture window when you went to go down the step into the living room to turn the corner to go to the kitchen.
Oh man.
So I didn't quite make it down off the step, because I just got into the bottom of the step, and I went to go to the living room, and I just looked up, and we just had sheer curtains on the window, so it wasn't blacked. Right. Kind of, you know what I mean? They were kind of pulled off to the side. So as soon as I looked, you just naturally looked into the window before you went to the living room. And I saw the eyes, and as soon as I looked up and saw those, everything just shut down. The laughing, the talking, the lights, everything went away. It was gone.
Wow, that's a lot for a kid to take in.
I know. Oh, I remember that like it was yesterday, and I'm 52 years old.
Sure. Yeah.
And,
these kind of claims are actually very common, though. It's surprising that it sounds like a party's going on in some cases, or a crowd of people, or laughing and talking. And do you recall being able to make out what they were saying, or was it just a jumble of sound?
It was just like a jumble. It was like you're walking into a party with like 15 people in there, and they're all talking their own little thing, laughing, joking.
Okay.
So I really didn't hear any like specific, not that I remember. I mean, but it to me is just like you walking into a party.
Makes you wonder if that was something more residual, but since you did have other activity in the house, it sounds like it's intelligent, but those kind of things can be either or. But the fact that it stopped once you hit that step, it does sound like it's directly responding to the fact that you were there. So I would think it was probably more intelligent in nature, because it quit happening as soon as you got into the area. Whereas if it was residual, it would probably just play itself out.
Right.
Wow, that's really intense.
And residual usually is, I mean, I ghost hunt, and residual activity normally is the same exact time, same loop every day. You can count on it.
Right.
That didn't happen every night. And plus, I kind of think that it was there to draw one of us out.
Right. Yeah. And
to get us by ourselves, I think, but because it was not a good house. And we actually 2 years ago, my oldest sister and I don't remember, we were down there for my mom had a stroke, and so we were down there in the area because my sister lives down there, and we were driving around, and for some reason she just asked me, she's like, do you remember that house that we used to live in, that really creepy place? And I said, yeah. And she goes, we're right by there. And I go, we are? And she's like, yeah, you want to go see it? And I said, yeah. I said, I don't know if I'll remember it, what it looks like. And we went down that street, Brent, and I tell you what, it was like someone had a rope connected to me and pulling me to this house. And we started driving, and as soon as we got probably, I'd say within 2 car lengths from that house, I told her, I said, it's right there. And we looked, and sure enough, it was the big picture window, the front door right to the left. The kitchen was in the back. I mean, we could tell the windows, and it was like it drew me to it. And I just had this sick feeling. Like, I just told her, I was like, we got to leave. Yeah.
If there is something there, you definitely don't want it following you home.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. I got enough following me. I don't need more friends, Brent.
I understand. And thank goodness and nothing did happen as a result of that then, right?
Yeah, no,
okay,
not anything dark.
Right. Good. Okay. But that is interesting how, how old were you when you lived there, would you suppose?
Probably around 6.
Okay. So you probably didn't know how to drive there at 6. Right?
Oh, no.
Like it wouldn't be subconscious or something. Okay.
No.
Wow.
No, I haven't been back there. Like I said, I've never been back there. This was the first time I've ever been back there since I was 6 years old.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's why I was like shocked that's why I didn't think I'd recognize it.
Right.
I was so young, but it was right there. I remember everything.
Oh, that's intense. Okay. So what happens next?
So, now I'm going to go jump to where my grandmother used to live.
Okay.
This is going to go back and forth because there's still much.
Yeah.
But my mom's mom, she lived in a home, and my cousins were always over there, and they were kind of into the darker stuff. Like, they thought it was fun to have seances, and so my cousins thought it would be fun too, because they knew my upbringing. And they weren't churchgoers, and so they thought. And I always told them I was never going to mess with a Ouija board. I don't touch them. I don't want to be around them.
Right.
And so they had gotten my grandmother's, and they had went upstairs not upstairs. My grandma had a garage with a loft up top, and the kids used to just hang out up there like a little clubhouse.
Oh, sure.
So they had went up there. They asked me to go up there with them, and I thought we were just going to go hang out. So I get up there, and they've got like the Ouija board laid out with all these candles and stuff around, and I was like, no, I'm good. And they're like, no, come here, come sit down. You got to watch this. It's really cool. I said, no. I said, I don't. Those things scare me.
Yeah.
And they started calling me names like chicken stuff. And,
yeah.
And I just was not a chicken. So you can dare me to do about anything. And so, unfortunately,
sure.
I said, well, just a second. So, me and my little God-fearing soul went down and grab the first thing I could think of. My grandma always had these little 2 pocket Bibles sitting on her little bedstand. One, the New Old Testament, one was an old. So I just grabbed the one that was nearest. I grabbed her little New Testament pocket Bible, and I ran back out there, and I was like just holding it. And so they're like, okay, well, sit down. I said, I'm not sitting down. I'll watch you guys. So they start playing with it, and they had their hands on it, and it was moving. They were talking, and just stop. And they're like, just wait. And so I was like, no, I'm done. And so I threw that little Bible. I just kind of tossed it onto the board. And that literally, they jumped back because, I threw the Bible thing on it. And that planchette called me a bitch 3 times. Like, it spelled out bitch 3 times with nobody talking to, nobody touching it.
Oh, it just moved on its own accord? It
moved on its own and called me that name 3 times.
Oh, my God.
Like, real quick.
Oh, yikes.
So I started crying.
Yeah.
And I ran downstairs and I got out of there. And, we didn't tell my grandmother because she would have spanked us because we weren't supposed to be touching her stuff. And so the next day, my one cousin, who she's kind of a follower, she was more along the lines of me. She didn't really like it.
Yeah.
And so her and I got this idea that we would take the Ouija board, and that it wasn't good for anybody. And so we would help my grandmother out and just burn it.
Yeah.
And get it out of the house. So my grandma used to have burn barrels behind her house that she used to burn trash in. And we took that board, Brent, and we took that thing and put it in that burn barrel. We put gasoline on that thing and we burned it. We watched it go up in flames.
Okay.
The next day, that board was back in its box in that armoire with no damage to it.
Oh my God. That's so creepy.
I know.
Oh, jeez.
I know. And trust me, I never went in there again. We didn't tell my grandma. We didn't say anything. I was like, no, I'm good. And I've not touched one since. I won't even go in a room where there's one in the room. And all of a sudden I looked up, I was looking at her. Everybody else was looking at them. And she looked up at me. She kind of put her finger up to her mouth like, shh, don't say anything.
I've heard stories like that, and they're really kind of hard to understand because basically it just seems in our Western thinking like, well, that's not possible, but you've experienced it, so I mean, I have no doubt that what you say happened. It's just it really speaks to some really profound energy, and whatever's going on there is not a trifling like normal kind of spirit. I mean, it just. That kind of activity is on a whole different level. Yeah,
that's the thing, though, is that people don't understand that even after experiencing it, to go back and talk to you about it, like I told you, I don't tell people this stuff because,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't even hardly believe it.
Right.
When I re-say it back to somebody, it's hard for me, and I was there.
Right.
And I still think, no way, man. That's impossible. There's no way. You know what I mean? It's impossible.
Right. Yeah, it really is. It defies physics as we understand it in so many manners and ways. So, but that's really the amazing part of the paranormal is that it really does demonstrate something so much more profound going on in our world. And even though that's a dark, scary kind of experience, it really is amazing.
Yeah,
wow.
It is. I mean, the whole paranormal thing is like, for me, I've always been drawn, and this is the part where I have to walk a really fine line.
Sure.
Because I am drawn to the dark side of things. I'm very drawn to it. Oh. And I don't know why. My one psychic told me it's because I was scared and I was so traumatized as a child with the abuse for one, but I was traumatized by what happened to me as a child spiritually with these things that followed me or were messing with me. That scary movies, things like that. It's the way to feel that but take control of it. Like I have the control. I'm the one watching the movie. You can't, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And it's when you're drawn to it, it's your way of trying to gain control over it because you don't have that control. You didn't have it when you were traumatized by it.
That's an interesting take, and I suppose there is merit to that. It does take a special kind of courage to have experienced such things when you were a child, and then continue to pursue them as an adult.
Yeah, I'm addicted to it. I honestly could tell people like movies, scary movies, ghost hunting. It's an addiction. I tried to cut out movies and I got about 3 months and that I couldn't do it. And like ghosts, I'm addicted and I'm not scared.
Okay.
Like it doesn't, I mean, I wouldn't say that. There's times when it unnerves me and I'm like, okay, I got to get out of here. But as far as like being like totally petrified and scared, I cannot walk away from it. Like if there's something that's going to scare me, I have to go do it. Well, or try to get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't understand it.
Like yeah. I suppose that kind of speaks to what you just said before, that you are conquering those things that made you feel scared and weak as a youngster,
Yeah.
So I guess that's a healing thing in and of itself.
Yeah.
Wow. So where are we going next on your journey?
All right. So same house, my grandmother's house. I was probably, I would think 10 or 11 by this time I was probably 10 or 11. And this house was like two houses. And then there was like this hallway type thing that connected the two homes together. So you could walk, my grandma lived in one and then my aunt, her daughter lived in the other end. So we were over at my aunt's house and I'd walk through the hallway to go to my grandma's and nobody was over there because everyone was at the other end. And I walked over to get something, I can't remember, chocolate milk or something for my grandma. And when I walked in, when you go through, you can see all the way through the house. Like it's just one long room. There's the living room and then the kitchen and everything's kind of just, there's no walls separating it. It's just one long area. And as I walked in to go, I walked into the kitchen and I was looking down and at the TV, and right next to the TV was this little boy, but he wasn't scary or anything. He was dressed in coveralls or little farmer coveralls, and he was just standing there. He was a little bit transparent. And so I was like, okay. And so I just kind of ignored him and I got the milk and I ran back to the other end of the house and I was like, I didn't say anything. I just gave him the milk and I went outside and played. And so that was pretty much the end of that.
Wow.
So
that's still an intense experience, but it wasn't like menacing or anything. It just was a child spirit. Huh.
He was just there, just standing there.
Wow. Okay. That's intense.
So the next one was, I think I was like 12.
Okay.
And I was at my cousin, the one that I was telling you about that helped me take the Ouija board out.
Oh, sure.
Her and I were in bed and I was spending the night there because my mom and her mom's dad, my grandfather, was in the hospital and he was close to death. And so we were sleeping and all of a sudden the bed started shaking, kind of like someone was bumping it from the end of it. And so it kind of woke us both up and we both saw this. So I know it wasn't just me. And we looked up and my grandpa was at the end of the bed and he was just kind of waving at us. And so we're like, waving back at him and we're like, what's going on? And so he just kind of disappeared. And like literally within 5 minutes of him leaving, we heard my aunt get up. We heard the phone start ringing. She got up out of bed and she started walking down the hallway and she answered the phone. We heard her talking and then she started crying. And so she came in to get us and she let us know that 10 minutes prior to my grandfather showing up, he had passed away at the hospital.
Wow.
And the funny thing is we actually were my grandfather's favorites. Like he favored us.
Now, did he appear as if he were really there, or did he appear luminescent or transparent, or what did he look like?
It was dark in the room, so it was kind of like we could see him. I wouldn't say he was glowing, but we could see him.
Right.
He was. I really can't remember. I just know we could see him, and we were just waking up, so it's kind of like,
yeah, right.
At first you're like, is he really there? But he waited till he didn't just show up and then disappear. He stood there and waved at us. So,
That's beautiful, I think. I mean,
yeah. Oh,
it was his way of saying, I love you, goodbye, and, we'll see ya.
Yeah. That one didn't scare me at all.
No.
I loved my grandpa.
That's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I love those stories, too, because it really is neat and can be so cathartic and healing when, you're going to be grieving. And at the time, you didn't know he'd passed, but you did have that memory of him being there. So that really is a statement of love. And I think that's really powerful.
Oh, absolutely.
That's wonderful. Okay.
So the next one, there's so many. I'm just trying to.
No, it's fine.
So the aunt that I was just talking about, she died, and I was like, I'm trying to think back. I had to be probably 41, 42. It wasn't very long ago.
Okay.
Maybe 10, 12 years ago. And we were sitting at hers, and she was in the military. And so when she went up to, they had there's three military officers there. Well, I don't know if they're officers, but they're, military people. And they went up there and they were doing like the guns thing in front of her coffin. And they were doing this little ceremony thing. And all of a sudden I looked up, and she's literally standing next to them.
Wow.
Doing it with them. And then she turned around. When they turned around, I was looking at her.
Right.
And everybody else she wasn't like right next to him. She was kind of down a little bit from him. So I was looking at her. Everybody else was looking at them. And she looked up at me, and she kind of put her finger up to her mouth like, shh, don't say anything. And I was like just staring at her like, okay, I'm not going to tell anybody I see you there. Trust me on that one. So they'll send me out somewhere I don't really want to go. So
yeah, no kidding. That's another beautiful example.
This car that was coming at us, there's no brake lights. None of the cars are going off the road like something just about happened. It's like that car really just went through us.
That's really cool because you've had these experiences and it must have helped you deal with their passing so much quicker in both cases.
It does, but the only thing is I am an empath.
Sure.
And so I very much absorb emotions and feelings. And when I tell you after funerals, I literally have to go home.
Yeah.
And I suffer from PTSD, depression, anxiety.
Yeah.
I have night terror still. I've got bruises all over from running into stuff and falling and stuff. And so I have to go home and take medication, just go to sleep because there's so much negative, sadness, not bad.
Yeah.
Just that I absorb that it's very hard.
Yeah, that would be really heavy. And of course that's, but being an empath, I think is a double tough thing because you have to be responsible not only for your own emotional state, but everyone else's around you. And that's heavy. That's so heavy. But
especially when you're walking down the street and all of a sudden you're angry. You walk past somebody and you're angry and you have no idea why. Right. Like you were having a great day. And then suddenly you want to, hurt somebody and you're like, what just happened?
What is this? Yeah, that's not really fair, but it's I guess it can be a blessing or a curse. And I think empaths really have a pretty heavy load just living.
Yep. That's for sure.
Wow. So where to now?
All right. So now we're going to go to another side of things where I believe that I have had angelic intervention.
Wow. Okay.
So there's like 4 stories here, and 2 of them are really personal. I didn't put them in the email, but I decided that, I really can't I shouldn't be ashamed because it is what it is. I've had a really hard life, and I lost my granddaughter at this time when the stuff happened. But so I'll go with those first. Sure. And then I actually tried to take my life twice. Oh, and so for some reasons, you know, God or somebody wants me here. Mm-hmm. But the first time I was at the house that we're going to talk about eventually later. If not, it would have to be another show. But sure. I actually could hear, like, I was just in a bad state, a negative state, and at that point in my life, my ex-husband, who is my ex now, was not a good person. Mm-hmm. He was also emotionally and mentally abusive, and he, like, I was just in a bad spot. And so my kids were real young. They were both, one was in kindergarten, the other one was in second grade. Okay. And so I was at the house, and I kept hearing, like, not in my head. These were voices coming straight right out of the air, right at me, like as if somebody was talking to me, but they weren't there. Sure. And they kept telling me, you know, your kids are going to be way better off without you. You're not being a good mom right now. You know, you're sad all the time. You know, your kids can't be happy. And so I grabbed up every painkiller, everything I could find, and I had alcohol there, obviously. And I sat down, I wrote a note, and I got ready to, you know, do it. Mm-hmm. And the phone rang. And so I got up and I answered it, and there was nobody there. Wow. So I hung it up. I got back, got ready to go again, and it started ringing again. And by now I'm getting ticked. You know, I'm like, what is going on, you know? Yeah. Get up, answer it, nobody's there. So I hung up, I slammed the phone down, and I just about ready to leave the phone, and it rings again. So then I pick it up, I'm like, who is this? What is going on? And my sister... My sister that we're really close. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "What do you mean? What am I doing? What do you?" She's like, "What are you doing right now?" And she goes, "Never mind. I'm coming over." Wow. And she hung up the phone, and I was like, "Uh-oh." So I grabbed up everything. I burned the note, threw it down the garbage disposal, threw the pills down the garbage disposal, dumped the alcohol out, and then I was done. And at that time they put me into like a place where I could detox out of the pills that I was taking. And so to get help there, I got put in there. And then I got out of there, but then it was 2 years ago. I was alone, and we just lost my granddaughter, my daughter's little girl. Aww. And there, you know, a lot of stuff was coming out from my ex-husband's things I didn't want to know about my kids and him. Oh dear. And so I was just done. Like I couldn't take it anymore. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just done. And I threw my phone in my bed. I started drinking just vodka, like fifth of vodka. I just was drinking it, and you know, I just wanted to go I ran the bath water. I got in the tub, and I just wanted to be done. Yeah. And so I just drank, hoping to just pass out and drown. And all of a sudden, next thing I know, I'm being pulled out of the tub by the paramedics. My daughter actually said that she had gotten a text from my phone to hers that said something along the lines of help, please, or something, but the words weren't quite like typed like real clean. Uh-huh. There was like H and then another symbol and then help, but it was like help, please, and then but it wasn't typed like someone just typed it nice and neat. Mm-hmm. And so she tried to call me, but I wasn't answering. So she called the 911. The cops came. They busted my door down, and they found me. Oh, my God. Brent, I never made that call. My phone wasn't even near me. It was in the other room.
Wow. That's amazing.
And so that's what I'm saying is like, it's those instances where it's like, you know, I don't know why I'm here, but something was intervening. Yeah. And so, yeah.
That's, you know, I really have to commend you, though, because just for anybody to come on the show and share their experiences, it's an act of trust, and it's an honor that I'm always really I'm really thrilled that people are willing to do that. But you also chose to share these stories, and I can't thank you enough, because somebody out there may hear this, and it may make all the difference in the world to them, and it may help them get out of a dark time or a dark place. And thank you so much for doing that, because that's truly it's never easy to expose ourselves. We all have things that we carry, but you are so brave to have put that out on this show, and I want to thank you so much for that. Just in and of itself, we're not done yet, but that really, I mean, I can't tell you how moved I am by what you just shared.
Well, thank you. I've come a long way with that. I think that people, just even like in work, people need to understand that nobody knows what I mean, you would never know. Mm-hmm. Like when I've been to therapy, I've been to trauma therapy. My trauma therapist was like, even my HR director, when I had to go to work because I was going to lose my job from it. Mm-hmm. And I started telling him everything I was going through. Just let you know, my divorce, my granddaughter, actually my ex-husband left us for a younger family member. Oh. And losing my granddaughter, my daughter was in a car accident. My mom had her stroke. I lost my apartment. Lost my dog. I had to move to a campground. My daughter had to move right after she lost the baby. She had to move to a friend's house because we couldn't get anywhere. Right. And then my mom had 2 strokes. That all happened in 6 months worth of time.
Oh man, that's brutal.
And so I just want people to understand that, they never knew. Like my HR director was like, how are you even functioning? And right. We would never look at you and be able to tell that you were going through this. And that's what people don't understand is don't ever be kind. Yeah. Just be kind, because you never know with that person. You may be the only thing in between that person's not being here tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's such a powerful statement. And, I close my shows always with be good, be kind, be nice, because I think people need that. There's so much going on in the world, and what you just shared is so incredibly powerful and profound, and you're absolutely right. Nobody knows what the other person is carrying and dealing with, and sometimes we react from our own emotional state. But I think you're absolutely right. You have to honor each person that you come in contact with and treat them well, because I think that's, whether you believe in karma or with the divine laws or whatever, I mean, it's just, you never know when that's going to mean the difference for that person. And so you're an absolute, success story. And my hat's off to you.
Thank you. So, all right, let's get off that.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to go to 2 more interventions I believe are angelic. I was in my vehicle when I was I think I was 19, 20. And I used to take my younger sisters to a church sport. Like we used to have church basketball team. And so we would go down to practice, and something happened at church. I don't remember what it was, but it just really, it made me furious. So I was mad. So I'm driving down to this practice, and there's a strip in the road where if you go to, it's a passing zone, but if you're passing, the cars coming at you actually look like they're in your lane going the same direction. It's a weird visual anomaly. Okay. So I thought that car was in my lane going the other way, or did go in the same direction as me. So I went to pass this car. Actually, there's 2 cars. They were on my right-hand side, and as I went to pass them, on the other side of the road is a ditch. And it's a deep ditch. So if you were to go off that ditch in your car, you're not just going to pop up out of the ditch back onto the road. You're going to crash. Oh. So I'm driving, and I'm not really thinking. I'm thinking about this situation. And just as I'm driving, I realize that car is coming in our direction. And there's nowhere for me to go. There's either I go on the ditch and crash, or I run into these cars beside me. They weren't moving. They weren't slowing down. And I didn't have anywhere to go. It was just that car was too close. So I was like, we're done. We're going to crash. So I just said, you guys hold on. And I closed my eyes, and literally we didn't crash. And I was like, I opened my eyes. I was like, what the? And I look, and I'm still passing these cars. So I quit getting around them. And I look back, like I get around them. And as I'm going like to go around them, I'm looking in my mirror. This car that was coming at us, all I see are the tail light, like the running lights of the car. There's no brake lights. None of the cars are going off the road like something just about happened. It's like that car really just went through us.
Wow.
It's like, I can't even explain it. It's literally the two cars beside me didn't react. The car that was now on the other side of us it was just driving like nothing happened.
Oh, man.
And so that was that incident. And then another time I was in a freeway and I was going to go around. It was icy out, it was snowing. And as I was going around the semi, I lost control of my car and it started like fishtailing.
Oh.
And so I started praying. I'm like, God, just please. And my steering wheel locked up, so I didn't have any more control.
Sure.
And my car started kind of slowing and it straightened itself out. As soon as it straightened itself out, my steering wheel unlocked, and then I was able to control my car again.
Oh, jeez. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, those two were cool.
You definitely seem to be you must have a really incredible guardian angel, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sure they have headaches now and then, but or they're a drinker.
Well,
I feel bad for my guardian angel. They have to go to therapy.
But they showed up when you needed them. Man, that's incredible. Yeah. That's really intense. That's really, I mean, truly, I believe in that stuff 100%. And I love those kind of stories too, because a lot of times on the shows, we tend to focus on the dark and the negative. And I love those incredible experiences of positive and like a divine intervention. I think the world needs more of those too. So.
Oh, absolutely.
That's really intense. Wow.
Okay. I'm going to go to, I don't know which one I want to do. So I'm going to go to this one because this one was really freaky. Like, it freaked me out big time. And I don't get freaked out very easily. So I used to work at a deli up in Big Rapids, Michigan. Okay. And I belonged to a church that we used to go to a convention for 2 weeks out of the year. Mm. And everybody would, there's different sites that throughout the United States, there would be different, they called them feast sites. Okay. And we would go. So anyways, we go to these conventions for 2 weeks out of the year. And this convention, I was getting ready to leave for it like the week, probably within 4 days of this happening. And the deli was in the back of the store. I'm just going to lay this out. And then there was the exit from the front of the store was the only exit out. It was two big double doors. And then there was some exits in the back way, but you could see all the exits from the back from where I was at in the deli, the emergency exits or wherever. Okay. And then the three aisles from the deli area, they went up. And then if you take a left, there's like video cameras, so you can physically see someone walking down the aisle and going left, and then there's a bread thing. Mm-hmm. Well, once you went around, there was like a little blind spot, and then you'd kind of reappear out of the blind spot, so they could see you walking, continuing around the bread aisle. Okay. And then you could walk out the front door or go back into the store through another aisle, however you wanted. But you had to either leave the store or go continue shopping. They could see you. Mm-hmm. So I was in the back cleaning the slicer, and one of my coworkers, a 70-year-old Southern lady, she was a sweetheart, but she was loud, boisterous, Mm-hmm. All of a sudden I hear her saying, well, I can help you. What do you need? In a Southern accent. And then I heard someone else talking kind of low. And then she's like, well, she's in the back busy, I can help you. So suddenly she comes around the corner. She's like, there's somebody out here that needs to talk to you. She only wants to talk to you. And I was like, well, okay. So I came out, and the deli case was kind of high. So this person was kind of not real tall. Okay. But it was like she was dressed in like a Mormon, Amish type outfit. Uh-huh. it was kind of cold out, so she had like the overcoat, with the little hood thing on.
Uh-huh.
And so she had her head down like she was looking at the stuff in the deli case. And I came around the corner and I was like, "Can I help you?" And Brent, she looked up and I was like, you know how you see something, but you can't quite like pinpoint what's wrong with it?
Okay.
Like there's something not wrong, right? And I
Sure.
had this horrible feeling, like just dread. And I was like, when she looked up at me, her skin was like, if you see like a washing machine, right?
Okay.
You know how like it starts to get off balance and it's vibrating?
Yes.
And it's vibrating so fast that it's there, but it's not like, it was like that, but even faster, like almost still, but not quite.
Oh, man. Okay.
It was weird. Like if you were just quick glance at her, you wouldn't notice it. But it was like, I can't even describe it. It was moving, but it wasn't.
Okay.
And like her eyes, you could see a pupil in real dark brown. So they almost look black, but they're real brown.
Uh-huh.
And then her features were there, but they were like not real distinguished. Like you can tell when someone's got a nose and a mouth. You can see the lines around the lips, She had features but they weren't real strong.
Wow.
It was almost like something was trying to hold the face together. That's the only way I can say it. Okay?
Yeah.
But it was so subtle. But it was like I was staring at her because I was trying to figure out what was wrong with her. That's how subtle it was. And so I said, "Can I help you?" And she goes, I go, "Do I know you?" Because I wanted to know why she kept asking for me.
Right.
And she was asking for me by name.
Okay.
And I go, "Do I know you?" And she goes, "You know of me."
Oh.
And I said, "Excuse me?" And I said, "What? I don't understand." She goes, "Why do you serve him?"
Oh. No.
And I looked at her and I said, "What are you talking? Who are you?" She goes, "You know who I am." And I go, "No, ma'am, I don't." And she goes, "Why are you going?" And I go, "Why am I going?" And at this point, I was starting to get kind of angry because I was like, because I was scared. At this time, I was actually scared.
Ugh.
And I said, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "You know what I'm talking about. Why would you go and serve someone that you're not, basically, that's not doing anything for you?"
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "You know what? I don't know who you are or what this is about." I said, "But I'm calling security."
Mm-hmm.
And I turned around, I went to the phone on the wall, and I called security. She turned around and walked away. She walked up the aisle. She walked to the left, and I thought she left the store. Mm-hmm. So I went up to security. I said, "Can you show me the tapes?" So they rewound the tape. You see her walking down the aisle. You see her turning to the left, and then you kind of see her, like you're expecting the blind spot, so you don't see her. And then you expect her to come back out of that blind spot. She doesn't come back out of it.
Oh.
And she didn't go out the exits in the back. She just was gone.
Yikes.
And I was like, okay. Yeah. That one, like to this day, when I tell that one, I got goosebumps right now on my arms.
I got
it's
goosebumps
still
too.
Like,
yeah.
Ugh.
That's so intense. How do you come to terms with something like that? I mean, that is nearly biblical,
Yeah, you know what? I don't know. The only thing I can think of is at that time in my life, I was really trying to get closer to God and try to do the right thing.
Sure.
I'd been baptized. I just recently gotten baptized.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it was because, I was telling you from before, I've always been drawn to the dark.
Yeah. So
I really wasn't, I was kind of like, I believe in God. He leads my life. I will say that right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. But I've kind of been like where I didn't really, I grew up in church. So I just kind of thought it just, I'm a churchgoer. I'm a Christian. I've got a relationship. I don't really have to work on it.
Right.
But in the end, I also like this stuff. So I'm going to go ghost hunting. I'm going to, watch scary movies. And
Sure.
So it seems like the time that I actually was starting to study and trying, getting baptized and trying to close my relationship, get it closer with God.
Yeah.
it seems like I feel like it was an attack.
Right.
To try to bring me back to, focusing on the dark stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I just think that's so profound and incredibly intense because, you're being confronted with something, and I can only assume that it was something very, very dark. Just the visual representation of it being like in a vibrating frequency is so. How you even had a conversation after that confrontation is amazing.
Well, it's because you know what, Brent? Like I told you, it was so subtle. I'm just trying to describe what I think I saw, and that's exactly what I can say. Yeah. Because there was something wrong, but I truly could not pinpoint what was wrong. Like I couldn't tell you. I just knew that was not a person.
Wow.
It was someone trying to be a person.
Oof, man.
To present themselves as a person to me. And what more innocent person would come up to you than an Amish person or another, religious type.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
To where they could think that you would trust them to talk to them. Right. Type of thing. That's the only thing I could think of. It's like a child spirit. You got to be careful with those.
Did it look like a child or did it look like an adult?
No, it was a woman.
Okay.
It was a woman.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I'm just saying like child spirits are also usually demonic.
Yeah, I've thought about that too. It's like, it always starts with kids and then ends up with exorcism and, holy water.
Screaming and crying and, running. And
yeah, it just goes real south after that. But not that there can't be children spirits, but I think that, if especially in terms of the dark things, it's like what they want is for you to let them in. And one of we are, and this is something I've shared on my YouTube show many times, but we are nearly genetically programmed to help a child, and to open ourselves to children if you're a normal person, if you're a decent and normal person. And so that's a quick way through a person's defenses to look like something helpless, And that's very, very profound. I always have that great degree of skepticism when people say, "Oh yeah, it was a little child ghost or a child spirit," and it's like, "Are you sure about that?" So, and maybe they can, they probably can be, but I think just as often it's not what you think it is, and that's the scary part. But I tell you what, CJ, this has been an incredible journey, and you're definitely going to have to come back to share more of this. I know you've got a ton more to share, but
absolutely.
So I hope you'll agree to come back and do this again.
Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough for being here and for sharing the amazing things that you have, but some truly personal things. But again, I think that's there's those kind of messages are so important. And I can't tell you how honored I am that you chose to share them here on the show.
Thank you, Brent. I do love your show. I listen to it every night at work. So.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us here on tonight's show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please feel free to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio. As well as finding us on Twitter. We're on Twitter at Paranormal Portal, Portl. And we'd love to have you stop by our YouTube page and subscribe and check out our shows there. We got hundreds of shows, Journeys into the Paranormal Portal. So I hope you'll check it out, guys. We're over there at youtube.com/Paranormal Portal. So hope to see you guys soon. We'll be back, of course, for more podcasts in the coming days. So we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day and remember to laugh as much as you can.